The first time I saw her, it wasn't the kind of sight you could shake off. Her eyes, too bright, too knowing, were fixed on me from the dark surface of the river. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She just stared. There was something in the way her head tilted ever so slightly, like she recognized me, like she had been waiting for me all along. And then she smiled. Not the kind of smile that makes you feel warm or safe. It was slow, deliberate, and cold, as if she enjoyed the fear running through my veins. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I turned and ran as fast as I could, the sound of the river growing louder behind me, as though it was chasing me. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Tobi, and I have lived my whole life in Eket, a quiet town in southern Nigeria. I'm 18 years old, just finishing secondary school. And like most people here, I grew up surrounded by the tales of the river. My father, an old fisherman, used to say, "The river has eyes, Tobi. It watches, it waits. Don't ever let it catch you staring back." He would tell me stories about Mami Water, the water spirit who lived beneath the surface. Some said she could bless you with unimaginable wealth and beauty, but her gifts always came with a price. Others said she could steal your soul, dragging you into the water to live with her forever. I never believed those stories. They sounded like something people made up to scare kids into behaving. Besides, I had spent plenty of time by the river as a kid. Nothing strange ever happened. The worst thing I had ever seen was a snake slipping into the water. That's why I didn't take those dreams seriously when they started. The first dream was simple. I was standing by the river at night. The air was cold, and the moon was high, casting a silver glow over the water. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, feel the damp earth beneath my bare feet. Then I saw her. She was standing in the water, her body half submerged. Her hair was long and dark, floating around her like it had a life of its own. Her face was beautiful, too beautiful, and her eyes glowed faintly like two embers in the dark. She didn't speak, she didn't move, but her presence was heavy like a weight pressing down on my chest. I woke up gasping for air. My heart was racing, and my clothes were drenched in sweat. I sat up in bed, staring at the window. Outside, I could hear the faint sound of the river, carried on the wind. I told myself it was just a dream, but it didn't feel like one. The dreams kept coming. Every night, I found myself by the river. Sometimes she was standing in the water, watching me. Sometimes I could see her, but I could feel her presence, hear her voice, soft and melodic, like a song I couldn't quite understand. And every night I woke up more afraid. During the day, I tried to brush it off, focus on school and football, and hanging out with my cousin, Femi. But it was hard. I felt like the dreams were following me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Then the strange things started happening. It was a Saturday afternoon, hot and sticky. Femi and I decided to go fishing. The river was calm, the sunlight dancing on its surface. We sat on the bank with our lines in the water, talking about football and girls, and how we couldn't wait to leave Eket one day. Do you ever think about these stories? Femi asked suddenly. What stories? About Mami Water. I shrugged. They are just stories. My dad says they are meant to scare us. Femi nodded, but he didn't look convinced. My mom says she knew someone who saw her once, a fisherman. He disappeared a week later. They found his boat, but they never found him. That's just a coincidence, I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. Femi didn't say anything else, but he kept glancing at the water, like he was expecting something to come out of it. That night, I had the worst dream yet. I was back at the river, but this time the water was black and churning, like it was alive. The air was thick with the smell of salt and something rotten, and I could hear faint whispers, like voices carried on the wind. Then I saw her. She was closer this time, standing on the river bank, her silver wrap clinging to her body. Her eyes locked into mine, and I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. What do you want? Why do you run from me? She asked, her voice soft and sweet. I don't know you, I managed to say. But I know you, Tobi, she said, her smile widening. I have always known you. I woke up, screaming. Femi and I didn't talk much the next day. He seemed distracted, his eyes darting around like he was expecting something to jump out at him. When I asked him if he was okay, he just shook his head and muttered, "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. That night, we decided to walk home together after a late football match. The quickest way back was by the riverbank, even though people always said to avoid it after dark. Spirits don't come out until midnight, Femi joked, but his laugh sounded forced. As we walked, the air grew colder, and the crickets stopped chirping. The only sound was the soft crunch of our footsteps on the gravel path. Then we saw her. She was sitting on a rock by the water, her back to us. Her hair gleamed in the moonlight, and her silver wrap shimmered like fish scales. "Who is that?" Femi whispered. "I don't know," I said, my mouth dry. The woman turned her head, just enough for us to see her face. Her eyes glowed faintly, and her smile was sharp, almost predatory. "Let's go," I whispered, grabbing Femi's arm. But before we could move, she spoke. "Come back," she said, her voice echoing in the still air. "I want to talk." Femi froze. "She's beautiful," he whispered, his voice shaky. "Don't look at her," I said. "Just keep walking." But he didn't listen. Femi turned, and the scream that followed still haunts me. Femi was never the same after that night. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. He said she came to him in his dreams, calling his name, telling him to come to the river. I tried to help him, but there was nothing I could do. And then one night, he was gone. I woke up to the sound of the front door creaking open. I ran to the window and saw him walking toward the river. His movements slow and deliberate. I chased after him, shouting his name, but he didn't stop. When I reached the river, she was waiting. Femi stood at the edge, his toes in the water. He turned to me, tears streaming down his face. She said she will leave you alone if I go with her, he said. No, I screamed. Don't listen to her. But it was too late. The water rose up, wrapping around him like arms. I tried to pull him back, but the current was too strong. The last thing I saw was her face, her glowing eyes fixed on mine as she smiled. And then they were gone. Femi's body was never found. The villagers said he must have drowned. But I know the truth. She took him. Now, every night, I hear the river calling my name. And I know it's only a matter of time before she comes for me too. Thank you for watching the part 1 of this story. Click to watch the part 2 now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories. Thank you.